Nisha Green, the founder and CEO of Black Women CEO, and I'm so excited to be back with an episode for our Black Women CEO podcast. And in doing so, first, I want to say congratulations and thank you to all of our listeners, subscribers, and our guests that have been on this show. This week, it is the week of February 1st, the end of January, beginning of February 2019, and we hit 10,000 downloads and listens. That is such a major milestone that we achieved with the podcast. And in the back of my mind, I'm also thinking like, wow, for like almost a whole year, we didn't have a bunch of new episodes. And in just the last couple of months, we doubled the amount of downloads and listeners. Now, some of this is from a sponsor called Meet Egger. It's a social media manager that allows you to rotate your posts automatically. So it got our episodes out there to our community again and again and again. And so that helped new listeners and maybe some of you old listeners re-listen to some of our evergreen, right? These are priceless episodes. So I'm so happy to be using that service. And I promise you, I will share that resource in the link. It is called Meet Egger, and it's a social media scheduler that allows you to get the most out of your content. So that actually is a good segue into why there's been a break in Black Women CEO podcast. And I won't go a deep dive because if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I personally have a number of health issues that I was managing and getting through those. But also one thing in starting the podcast that I didn't consider, but I consider in every other business endeavor is how is it going to be monetized? How is it going to generate revenue? And the podcast really came out of a passion. And I figured, okay, I'll have the podcast and I'll still run my business on the side and they all work together. But when coming back from, mothering and taking care of myself and self-care, the revenue generating tasks that I focus on take all of my attention. So, engaging communities, having workshops, doing private clients, and it made it difficult to sit down and do the podcast. Now, of course, it's easy to get on the microphone and talk, right? You probably been seeing me doing Facebook Lives. That's really easy. But the hard part is if I'm doing the editing myself and putting the intro and the outro, and that's actually why this episode doesn't have an intro. I don't feel like messing with GarageBand. Now you may be saying, that is lazy, but it's not, right? And so also when I consider, getting help or if I outsource or add people to my team, I'm also thinking about how is that generating revenue. So while, yes, I could find someone to edit the podcast and clean it up, it costs money to do that. And so I'm like, okay, how am I going to get a return on that? So I just wanted to be really honest about the back office things that I think about and where I put my attention in my business. So, one of the webinars that I did recently, and I'll probably share the episode, is how I generate 5K plus in monthly sales while working my business part-time. And the root of that, I talk about making sure that you're focusing on the lifeblood of your business, which are revenue generating activities. Now, one thing about the podcast is that I love it. I'm dedicated to it. And I got numerous messages saying, Quanisha, the last episode was this date. When's the next one? And it's sad because I have some recordings like sitting in the cloud, right? And so but hitting 10,000 listens and downloads this week was like, okay, Quanisha, you got to get this together. This has momentum. You want to keep it up. And this is a way to increase not only my value and visibility, the value of my business and the visibility, but also it moves that movement forward of helping us to see more Black women entrepreneurs who are doing awesome things, who are beating the odds and generating revenue. So I thought it apt to come and share today that for the month of February, Black Women CEO is hosting a virtual summit called Rise. And the theme, or you can say the subtitle, is It's time the world knows your name. right? It's time the world knows your name. Statistics are showing that, yes, Black women are the fastest growing group of women entrepreneurs, but the part we don't often hear is that by race and gender, we have on average the least, or we have the lowest tier of average gross revenues, right? And so you may be saying, what does that mean? So, and once again, these are United States statistics and the latest ones, which are a couple of years old, but even the projections from American Express and recent publications are saying this is still the figures, right? And in the ratios, even between the different racial and gender groups. So on average, Black women-owned businesses generate $27,753 a year. So let's just say $28,000. And that's gross annual revenue, right? The averages of Black women-owned businesses. Now, yes, it's good that we are, generating some revenue, right? We're not in the red, we're in the black. But when you look at the other groups, the group that's like right above us are, as far as the women-owned businesses, are Latina women-owned businesses. And guess what? Their average gross revenue are double ours. So although we know that there are major micro factors like racism, systemic oppression, even sexism, and how we experience it at that unique intersection as Black women, one thing I don't hear enough of, and this has also been my take even as I've navigated social justice as a career, is that yes, we have to focus on the macro issues, but how also are we empowering people on the individual level of agency? And now coming into the fourth year, May 2019 will be 4 years that I've been leading Black Women CEO. I see it every day in the thousands of women that we've touched through our paid programs, even our free programs. I have personally, privately coached over about more than 50 women through my organization and different coaching contracts that serve Black women, like one-on-one. And I see it all the time that, say the world was perfect, that many of us still have self-biases, right? Our own doubts, fears, insecurities that stop us from really showing up powerfully, right? Or that keeps us shrinking, right? I call it being a secret entrepreneur. We can even use this popular term, hidden figures, right? And of course, even some of that self-doubt or sometimes having an unhealthy sense of self is still influenced by micro factors, right? We may internalize some of that racism, right, and not even realize it. So that also is an influence. But I think sometimes when we focus on the macro issues, which, as we know, it can take a long time to change and shift, we take the focus from what can we do in this moment? How can we empower ourselves, right? How can we take 100% responsibility of our lives and not be victim of circumstances? I love this formula by Jack Canfield in his book, Success Principles. And he talks about how that we will always have events in our life, right? There will be circumstances, a flood, hurricane, someone gets sick, right? You can't control certain life circumstances. And so he calls that, so that's E, that's part of the formula. But the thing that we always have control over are our reactions, right? What we choose to do in relation to those circumstances. And he signifies that with the letter R. And so E, the events, plus R are reactions equals O, which are the outcomes, right? Which are the results that we see in our life. So when you look at that equation, E plus R equals O, what's the factor that we can manipulate, right? It's the R, how we choose to react. And for those of you who know me, I have a master's in social work, and cognitive behavioral therapy or perspectives or modalities really talks about that the root of everything that we experience has to do with our thoughts, right? Our thoughts and our belief systems. And many times these things are operating unconsciously, right? But our thoughts and our beliefs impact how we feel and our emotions. Those things impact what we do, right? Our behaviors and actions. And ultimately, our behaviors and actions, right, create the results that we see in our life. So if anywhere along that line, like if you're not liking how you're feeling, or you're not liking the results that you're seeing, or you're like, why am I acting this way? We have to backtrack to the thoughts. So if you find yourself not promoting your business, if you find yourself not even starting or launching your business, or maybe you're in business and you're like, why am I not at that next level yet? Because maybe you're stopping yourself from hiring people. Maybe you're stopping yourself from getting that consultant that can help you streamline, or just plain old asking for help, right? So these are many of the things that I see that are totally within our control, that many of you all, right, the highly educated, highly talented Black women that I come in contact with are struggling with. Right. So, yeah, we all have our stories of microaggressions and maybe feeling that we were discriminated against. But at the same time, there's so much within our realm of influence that we can change, that can have a significant impact on our lives and our businesses. So I said all that to say that we're having this Rise Virtual Summit, like I said, with the statement of it's time the world knows your name. And so we're having speakers and trainings and resources to help you elevate in your value, and that's your value in the marketplace, as well as your sense of worth and your visibility also in the marketplace, right? And how you want to step out there for your purpose and your passion and what you really feel called to do. So what I'm going to do is now segue into the kickoff that we had on January 31st. It was our kickoff call with awesome Black woman CEO, Shelly Bell, who is the founder and CEO of Black Girl Ventures. And she led a great keynote covering all the topics we just said, like what do you really need to do to position yourself as far as skills, your strengths, right, your mind and perception to increase your value and visibility. So I'm going to let that play so that you can enjoy it via the podcast. And just know that these recordings will be up for a limited time. And if you want to watch the actual visuals, like the PowerPoints that are associated with these trainings, go ahead and click the link in the show notes. Right now, the Rise Summit is at bit.ly, so bit.ly/Rise Summit 2009. So that's RISESUMMIT 2019. So bit.ly/Rise Summit 2019. And that will allow you to register so that you can come, one, and get the replays of the actual videos, get access to that, and you get to get access to and notifications of all these resources and speakers that we have coming up. On the roster is Kim Coles. You know her as an actress, but she also is an expert at helping you to craft stories that are powerful and profitable, that help you to captivate with your stories, and that can lead to you attracting clients and opportunity. We also have Ashley Kirkwood, who is an attorney and the principal attorney and the founder of Mobile General Counsel. And for those of you who have been wondering, how do I protect my idea? She's doing a special talk on Get the T on trademark, right? Giving you some trademark tips. And another featured expert that we have coming on is Monique Eversley Buchanan, and she has an MBA, and she's the co-founder of the Philadelphia Natural Hair Show, where over the last 5 years, they have attracted thousands of participants and hundreds of vendors. So if you've been wondering how you could really get out there in person and have events that help you to position yourself as an expert as well as impact people, she's going to do her presentation on events for business. And last month when we had our business Kickstart Intensive, she kind of gave an introduction to it, and the participants love it. They have so many questions. Some of them are going to work with her. So I was like, you have to come back and do it for the summit. And she said, okay. And then we're going to hear from some Black women CEO collective members, women that I've been working with over the last 2 or 3 years. And they're going to share how they made this transition, right? And I think it's good to have guest speakers that kind of speak to where you may be, right? In that first 1, 2, or just messing with the idea. And they can share some of those things that they had to overcome to actually say, yeah, I'm going to do this. I'm going to step out and get known, right? And also ask to be paid well for my expertise. So, and I'll have some trainings that I'm going to lead. So, go ahead and go to bit.ly/Rise Summit 2019. That's going to take you to the registration page, and the private Q&As, all those things are just for registrants. So while I'm going to share some of the replays here in audio form, I want you to get the full benefits of the whole experience. See the slides, take the notes, be on the webinar call so that you can ask your questions, because this is all about serving you. So that's why I'm coming back on, making sure these recordings are up and getting to you in that way. So some of them might be without the whole little reggae jingle in the beginning, because I just want to make sure there's no barriers to getting this information out to you. So make sure you check out the show notes for the link, because it's new. This way you can just click and go. And now I truly am going to hand it over and have you listen to the kickoff event for the Rise Virtual Summit hosted by Black Women CEO. So this is Quanisha Green signing off, and I hope to see you in our Rise live sessions. Talk soon. All right, as you come in, please introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Quanisha Green, and I am the founder and CEO of Black Women CEO. And I'm so excited to come to you and introduce you to Rise, our virtual summit, because it's time the world knows your name. So this is our kickoff session where we're going to have keynote speaker Shelly Bell, the founder and CEO of Black Girl Ventures. So I'm going to introduce her in a moment, but quickly, I just wanted to tell you about Black Women CEO, because you might be like, who are you? So Black Women CEO is a global hub dedicated to providing high impact and culturally relevant business programs, coaching and training for highly educated and talented Black women entrepreneurs who are ready to get known, right, and paid well for your expertise. One of the reasons that we're having this summit is that, of course, we know that there are issues like racism, right? Macro issues like racism, sexism, right? Classism, a number of reasons that a number of factors that impact, our success, right? Statistics show that we're underrepresented when it comes to political leadership, corporate leadership. When you look at the statistics for average gross revenues, when it comes to business, Black women were in the bottom tier when you look at race as well as gender, and then even that intersection of the two. So when we think about what does it mean to rise, what does it mean to increase our value and visibility, not only do we need to attack the macro issues, we also need to look to see what are the self-biases and things that get in our way. Because if we always feel that we're victims of circumstance, then that's a uncomfortable place to be, right? But you have personal agency. There are things that you can do, tools, strategies, even communities that you can be a part of that can help you beat the odds. And so that's why we're having this summit, bringing you resources, success strategies, and direct access to Black women CEO experts who have themselves beaten the odds, right? And who have also supported and created communities that help not just Black women, but people to flourish in general when it comes to business, entrepreneurship, and career. So that's about us. If you have any questions, feel free to write it in the chat. So the way this is going to go today as our kickoff is that I'm going to introduce my friend Shelly Bell so that you can know a little bit about her. And then we'll have a 15-minute Q&A period at the end so that if you have any questions, right, based on what she said, you have the opportunity to do that. Now, this video is also streaming to Facebook. So we are only answering questions for the people who have registered and that are on the Zoom webinar. So I will put the link in the Facebook chat where if you're not registered and you want to participate in the Q&A, you'll have the opportunity to do so. So let's actually all say hi to Shelly. I'm going to bring her on video. I think you're muted. All right. Hi, Shelly.
Hi.
I am so excited. Thank you for answering my call to be our keynote speaker for this Rise Summit.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. Thank you to Black Woman CEO for thinking of me, having me be a part of this summit. I'm excited to talk about visibility and to just talk about branding and what all of that means. I'll let you finish the intro and then I'll jump right in.
All right, awesome. And she has slides for us and everything, everybody. So I'm really excited about that. So just quickly, I always like to share from some of you who do listen to the Black Woman CEO podcast, how I personally connect to our guests and speakers. So Shelly, I think, had her first annual the Black Girls Venture Pitch Competition here in Philadelphia. And as soon as I saw the ad on Facebook, I was like, I have to be there. And I was traveling back from DC. It's funny because you usually have them in DC. And I was traveling back from DC and I had to be there. And Shelly is so captivating. I mean, the whole experience is, you just have to experience it. It's hard for me to explain. To see women get up and be visible, right? And talk about the impact and the work that they're doing. And I instantly fell in love. And I was like, I have to work with Shelly. And so we've been forming a sisterhood and looking to partner in different ways. So when I thought about the summit and who would be a great example, I was like, oh, Shelly, one, you just like exude what it means to be visible and to really have a stake at a certain level when it comes to entrepreneurship. And I love that you are cultivating that for other women, whether through helping them to get funding or have these connections to major institutions, right, that can serve them, but also are there to actually change the game, right, to have this big impact in society. So that's who Shelly Bell is for me. And that's how I enjoy her. But I want to read her bio so that you officially know about Shelly. And my computer's acting up, so I'm going to read it from my phone here. Okay. Shelly Bell is a system disruptor and business strategist who moves ideas to profit while empowering people to live more authentically. As a cultural translator, she connects entrepreneurs, investors, and corporations in order to diversify their talent pipeline, increase equity, and grow their brands. A computer scientist with a background in performance poetry, K-12 education, and IP strategy, she is what best-selling author Daniel Pink defines as a whole new mind. Named Entrepreneur of the Year 2017 by Technically DC, listed on the top 40 new power women in tech by DCA Live, and acknowledged as a rising brand star by Adweek. She is among the nation's most sought-after ecosystem builders and transformational speakers in Washington, D.C. metro area. Her organization, Black Girl Ventures, is a social enterprise that creates access to social and financial capital for Black and Brown women founders. BGV travels the country with a disruptive pitch competition that shifts the power dynamics and funding by combining crowdfunding and pitching. Google recognized Shelly's ability to engage an audience from grassroots to government. As a result, she serves as a Google digital coach for DC, working to bridge the digital divide for Black and Latinx business owners. Shelly is unquestionably an extraordinarily gifted speaker with an unflinching desire, she's like, yes, to remain honest with herself and others. Her magnetic energy, she definitely has that, y'all see, attaches an undeniable movement of social impact to any initiative she's a part of and makes her motto ring true in every interaction. Resist the urge to be average. So everyone, I now hand it over to Shelly Bell.
Thank you. Again, this is so exciting. I can't wait to have this conversation. So all those things, right? And so like underneath that is still the really formal thing. And one of the things that I would say is like, when I wrote Shelly Bell is when we got to, because I actually didn't write that parts of that bio. But when I got the bio back and it said, Shelly Bell is one of the most sought after ecosystem builders and speakers. And in that moment, I was like, I'm not the most sought after. Like I was like, is that true about me? And it's true, definitely true about me now. But I think back, maybe this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. when this part of the bio was actually written, and I remember thinking to myself, like, what does that mean? And so I think when we talk about what I'm going to talk about today, which is like owning your visibility, owning your brand, and then pushing into what that looks like for you as an individual. I think that part of it starts with like our story, right? Like, what are the questions that we ask ourselves on a daily basis, and what are the stories that we've told ourselves, and what is our daily life culture that we built for how we are designing our lives. Technology can sometimes, as an entrepreneur, feel like more of a task. It can feel like we say things like, oh, being connected online and social media is almost like a full-time job. And it does become one of the things that falls on your plate to do. But when you're operating in a space where you're owning a brand and you're really pushing that out, it's connectedness in multiple ways. And so a lot of times I get questions from introverts to say, well, like, I'm just not that social. And I get exhausted by talking to people. And my advice is to people and that is very valid. The thing is that social media is for you, because now you don't have to be in person with people. You also can walk away from your computer or your device anytime you want to. You can do a way better job controlling your content, mapping out your content, figuring out what you want to share. A lot of times, like, I've heard people say things like, I had to get off of Facebook because it's just too dramatic. And I think to myself, well, you're controlling everybody that you encounter on Facebook. It's not like Instagram or Twitter. You're actually you're going and you're adding these people to your friend base. And so when these social media platforms feel like too much for you, so much so that you can't balance consuming versus actually interacting or putting out your information, that's when we have to visit, am I owning my brand, or am I folding into what other brands want me to be and do? So I'll back up a little bit and I'll say just a little bit about me. Behind the professional things, I am a person. I have 3 children. I have a 20-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Yes, a 4-year-old. And right now, Black Girl Ventures, we did 7 cities last year. This year, we'll be holding pitch competitions in 9 cities. We kick off in Austin, in South by Southwest, in Austin, Texas on March 11th. And then we'll be doing Austin, Baltimore, Durham, North Carolina, Philly, Chicago, Atlanta, DC, Detroit. And we've gotten so many other people reach out to us. And how did this all start? So I have a couple ventures of my own. I have a print shop that I was operating. And, to go a step back from there, I was engaged to a man who did not want me to start a business. And I'm an artist. Like I've done journalism. I've always been entrepreneurial. I've always had a side hustle. I did performance poetry. The first time I actually left, I was a teacher for 7 years. I left teaching to do poetry full time. And I started my own art organization and started running that. Then at the end of that year, I was like, listen, cut it. I need money consistently. So I went back to work and then worked for a little bit, hated it, left there. And by this time I was engaged and about to have my 3rd child. And I told myself that after I did that I wanted to go and start a business or get a job in art. And the man that I was married to at the time, he wasn't understanding that. He didn't get that. In hindsight, he also didn't get how I felt about being visible and how I felt about my journey being visible. I'm open and very personable online and in person, like I'm the same person. But through art and sharing your story on stage as an artist, as a poet, and then hosting events where other people were sharing their stories on stage, it became just so natural for me. And so when it's not natural to you, it makes sense. And then you're thinking, well, how could I do that? Right? I'm not naturally a person who is always, ready to talk or want to step on a stage, but social media creates a stage for me that I'm trying to figure out how I wrap my head around, and then actually be strategic about. So I went to work. I went to work. I kept working because my fiance didn't want me to start a business. And I hated it every day. Best boss I've ever had. Pretty great job, really great pay, but I hated it every day. And one day my boss called me in and he was like, look, you're awesome, but this is not for you. I don't know what you're supposed to be doing, but it's not this. He laid me off. He paid me for like another couple of months, gave me insurance for another couple of months. And which it sounds like a sweet deal, to be laid off, but I was devastated. I went home and I called California psychics, like, what is happening to my life? Somebody tell me something, because things are going crazy. And the woman, she told me, when you find what it is you want to do, the money will come. And by the way, you're not going to be with that guy. So exactly that. Ended up not being with that guy. And here I am left with all of my ideas. So when I started in poetry, this was before Instagram. So this is about 2010. So, and I remember thinking, regardless of how my poetry matches up against another poet, what I know for sure is technology, because I'm an engineer, I'm a computer scientist. And so I'm like, I know that. So I know that if I plant myself everywhere online with the look that I want to have, that I would basically create my own billboards that people would have to keep driving by, right? Online though. So in the beginning, like, all of my photos were professional photos. I did not have a photo that was not a professional photo. I had no selfies. I mean, selfies weren't in then because there was no Instagram. I had no family pictures. Like, my entire Facebook albums and everything was just all professional photos. I didn't pay for many of those professional photo shoots. I found websites online like Model Mayhem. I found upcoming photographers that didn't know how great they were, but they were great, and they needed space to activate with other people. And I reached out to them and I talked to them. I built relationships with them, business relationships with them. And then I'm like, hey, anytime I wanted to take pictures, there I was taking pictures. There was even a point where I started to buy my own equipment. And like during my stint in journalism, I actually did some event photography. And so I started buying all these things. And then, taking the pictures myself. I think now you have a pretty good shot at it with the phone. So I'm a Google digital coach. And one of the phones that Google has, the phone is a Google Pixel. It takes amazing pictures. And I'm not just saying that because I work with them. I'm saying it because it is really the truth. It takes amazing pictures. And you can even find ways on your iPhone or to take really great shots of yourself and shots of yourself in life. So I put all these images of me in different places. I have accounts on almost every website you can think of with a consistent bio and a consistent image of me that was telling a story of who I was then, which was artsy, outgoing. I always loved different lipsticks. So I would always experiment with stuff like that. I always loved different hair colors. So I would experiment with things like that. And, you can just take an inventory of yourself to start. So to start, I would say, who are you? When you're filling out like a persona, if you're filling out that about yourself, your age, your location, your what do you like about hair? What do you like to watch on TV? Every part of you can be a part of your brand and create visibility for yourself. And the awesome thing about it is you get to choose which things you want to push first. So I have a lot of tattoos, which you can't really necessarily see them right now with the way the video is. But I also started following people and interacting with people that were into tattooing. And now, like, people know, like, in my images, you will see a lot of my tattoos because I don't hide them. And I push that out as a further part of my brand. I'm a mother. So sometimes when I'm doing my talks and things like that, I'm talking about, motherhood and like how that works and being an entrepreneur. I'm a mom and an entrepreneur. When you see me, you may see me with my 4-year-old. I actually have daycare in Philly. So when I come to Philly, I have daycare. Shout out to Karen Parker in Philly, a daycare provider in Philly, so that I can bring my 4-year-old with me when I'm doing work in Philly. So when apologize, what's happening? I'm sorry.
Oh, Shelly, you're good. It was on my end. I locked the webinar. I thought I unlocked it, but go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I been talking to anybody this
No,
time?
you have this. I'm streaming to Facebook. Hello, Facebook. So people.
Hello, Facebook. Okay, good. Well, that's perfect timing because I'm just about to jump into the presentation for the last half. But yeah, so again, the whole you, it has all these things that can be branded. And so when we think, sometimes we're thinking like, oh, what do I have? As if we have to pull things out the shelf. But I would say, step back and just look in the mirror. Who am I? What do I have? What am I currently doing? What do I do all day? And you may think that those kind of things are not inviting, but they are, because what people really want to know is, how do entrepreneurs live? They want to hear from you when you're selling your product. You may be thinking that if I keep people distant and just keep showing them the product, that is all they will need. And that's not necessarily the case. So I say to entrepreneurs, there is your side, my side, and the story. Well, the piece that will push out and people will gravitate to more is always 100% going to be the story. And the one of us, or the parts of us that are telling the biggest, loudest, most colorful story, is what people gravitate to. Now, you're in business to sell your product or sell your service. And part of that is going to include selling yourself. But selling yourself does not have to be this sleazy kind of feeling that we have maybe seen or heard, or how our relationship to what it means to sell something. Sometimes it's what we have to visit before we can own our own brands and own our own visibility. I'm going to go through with you a Google presentation that we have about owning your brand and digital content, and using digital content with that. And I am using a presentation that was developed by some Googlers who we're working with a set of women for helping them see the fullness of themselves. And I'm going to talk a little bit about going viral and just some things to think about while you are building your brand for the last half of the talk. Okay, I'm sharing it. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, I make lots of noises to myself. That is part of my sanity, by the way. I dance.
I do the hand thing. I'm always like,
yeah, I dance. I talk out loud. There's a part of me like manifesting where I'm going next.
Love it.
So let's talk about owning your brand. Be your brand. Be fierce and visible. First, be clear, right? So when you are, and goes back to what I was saying about having some mirror moments with yourself, and mind mapping moments, or writing these things out. You will. I'm not on screen. Can you see me on screen? I wonder why it's doing that. It's okay. I'll keep going.
We can see you on screen from our end.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I can't see myself. No worries. So, getting clear. I think when you are multifaceted and you are excited about multiple things, it can be hard to get clear, because you're like, oh, I can do all these things and I can do all of them well. I will tell you that I am the person that has to do at least 2 things all the time. I'm not one that can do one thing at a time. And people have told me that my entire life. Oh, you're doing so much. You're doing too much. And I'm looking at them like, you're not doing enough. But one thing's for sure, no matter how many things you're juggling or how many things you're doing, you can be clear on all of them. Each one of the things that you're doing can have a very clear audience, very clear values, very clear voice, and a very clear vision. And I tell people, you don't have to only do one thing, but consider doing them one at a time. Even if it's in a day, consider doing one of those things at a time during a day. Because it's like communication. There's a two-way street. So it's not all about just what you're saying and putting out, but it is also about how people are able to digest it. So when you are clear on what you're talking about, then I can be clear on what you're talking about. And I also have been telling people to stop trying to convince people to buy into you or what you're doing. Find the people that are zeroed in on exactly what it is you want and what exactly it is you're doing, and spend all of your available time talking to them. I have lots of people who will say, I've been in different workshops, and they'll say, oh, like I can see from my Instagram analytics that people are really following me on Thursday, but I want to push people to Wednesday. And I'm thinking, why? If you have not made $1 million off of Thursday, then absolutely own your space on Thursday and forget about Wednesday for now, and build strategies out around Wednesday later. Sometimes when you're building out and owning your visibility, you're like, what am I saying that nobody's said before? And there's also a push toward this idea that you have to have your unique value proposition. And yes, you do. But if you think about what a unique value proposition can be, you could get pretty creative and expansive around it. So think about how many chairs there are available. But for some reason, people still keep making chairs. And we know that they're going to have the basic things like a seat and maybe a back, but they will have different shapes, they will be different sizes, and maybe even made to address different purposes. Well, that means that while we may not be thinking that the concept of a chair is very unique, but that every chair can have its own uniqueness. So when you think of a unique value proposition, don't get stuck on how different you can be, on how far away from the norm you can be, but be really clear on on the story that you're telling, and try messaging in different ways. So a couple of things about messaging. Again, don't stress it. You can't control the way things happen. That's the way attitudes to take on. That's the way the cookie crumbles. I won't use bad language, but number 3 happens. Everything happens for a reason. Just deal with it. You just can't win them all. Que sera, right? These are just ways to say all that you could be addressing in your content on a daily basis, ways that you can choose to go live, and ways that you can tap into your audience and also show your product or service as a solution. So when maybe your product serves a space where people feel that they're losing control over something, losing control over their daily process, losing control over their hair, losing control over their place in politics in the world. And you can talk to them about how they could get past that, or your product could get them past that. And it's all around like creating self-acceptance and acceptance of your product all in one. And that creates a seamless storyline for people to gravitate to. Being real. One of the things I talk about a lot with founders that I work with is, how are you building a relationship? Right now in the business world, even the email communications, they have this very delicate balance of formal and informal. Now you're not sending letters out or communication out that says to whom it may concern, because 9 times out of 10 you have a direct email address and you know who it may concern. So you want to think through your writing. I had someone send me a reply to getting a job and say, I respectfully submit my resume. And I thought to myself, and when I got on the phone with her, I asked, how do you disrespectfully submit a resume? Why are you using these words that really are creating more distance from you than it is me actually feeling like you're a person? And it's because over time we've been taught that to be formal is to be professional. And now that day and age, with technology bubbling the way it has, that's changing. Who are you? People are gravitating to who you are. Now, let's talk about who you are, because this, as owning your brand, if you're doing this through a company, you're looking at what is your company's voice, which may or may not be your voice. And so what that could look like is, and what we do with Black Girl Ventures is, I have a persona that I built out that is a full-blown persona of who the Black Girl Ventures Instagram personality is. Her name is Zuri. She was 25 when we started. She's 27 now. She's from New York, but she went to Howard. She is an Aquarius. She's eccentric. She's all things girl power, and she is all about Black girl magic and highlighting the great things that Black women are doing in the community. I use this persona as a voice to own because she may or may not be my voice. I'm one woman, and Black Girl Venture serves multiple women on multiple layers of things. So while the Shelly Bell brand is could be very radical and like shaved hair and tattoos and, you know, identifying openly as bisexual and talking about all the things that I want to talk about all the time while being very digitally focused and savvy and all about women as entrepreneurs and engineers and in tech fields and making our own products. The Black Girl Ventures persona of Zuri is slightly more conservative, but also very savvy. Her voice is a lot more consistent with one thread of empowerment versus with me, I'm like all these places of empowerment. So when you're thinking about, go through your website, look at your company's voice, own that voice. You know, don't make, you know, instead of me saying in my bio, I don't say Shelly Bell may be one of the nation's most sought after speakers. I said, no, Shelly Bell is one of the nation's most sought after speakers. And beneath it all, you know, being refreshingly real with you, who's going to check you? 9 times out of nobody's coming to your, nobody's going to say, hey, so you're saying you're the most sought after. Well, how many people are seeking after you? Nobody's going to do that. We're in our heads and sometimes in our own way. And like, even if you're saying, now granted, what I would say is that what I found is that Black women have a particular affinity for reality that some other cultures do not. And we don't feel comfortable sitting in rooms and standing in the face, you know, some of us, of people who we feel like are lying or are not being completely truthful or real. And sometimes this perception of what real is gets in our way of figuring out how to really tailor our voice to a customer. In some cultures, you don't call people out and you don't tell certain truths because it's not nice. Not because it's not great to be truthful, but it's not nice to be truthful in some cultures. In our culture, we would rather people be more real with us than anything. And that's okay. But if we shift our perceptions to a yes and model versus a like, oh, you're not real enough and you're lying to me, to a, well, what is real? It is real now that I am one of the nation's most sought after ecosystem builders and speakers. And it was real to me when I wrote it that it's a possibility that I could be that. And so when I spoke on it then, I claimed it and it became, right? And sometimes we're mixing up words and syntax for definition and allowing that to hold us back. I remember working with an organization who said, well, we can't say on our website that we have members because we don't necessarily have a membership. We just have a Facebook group. And I said to them, well, does your Facebook group have members? They're like, yeah, over 1,000 members. And I'm like, well, you have members. So remember, in owning your voice and thinking through what these things really mean, like us being very literal when we can be creative, sometimes holds us up from really owning and honing in on our brand and our customer. I've also had through Google presentations, we have one about writing ads. And I'll put up an ad where the person will have fluffy language and then the ad where it's very straightforward language. And so it might say, fabulous cakes, you know, made by amazing people versus great cakes, great quality, great taste. Some people will see the flowery language of fabulous and amazing and go, I'm not going to like, that's, yes, I'm fabulous. Yes, I'm amazing, but that just doesn't feel real to me. Or you'll see some language that says fabulous or amazing or has very flamboyant language. And you'll go, yeah, but who says that? Who says it's flamboyant? Who says it? I mean, who says it's great? And it doesn't matter because people like flamboyant, language. People like you owning yourself. People like you saying, no, I am one of the nation's most sought after brands and ecosystem builders. People like you saying, I am the most, creative person in the universe. Think about every movie that comes out to say, oh, critics are saying this is number one. Nobody ever says like, where's the number one chart? They're lying. Like, we just trust it. Because if you're bold enough to say you're number one, then guess what? We're going to trust that you are number one. So, trust through transparency. When you are sharing yourself and you're being transparent about your journey, people trust that and they go in and they gravitate to you even more. I honestly would say that transparency is my secret sauce. I am the same person you're going to see here. You're going to see me in person. If I mess up, I'm going to say, oh my goodness, my bad. This is what I did. Now, granted, not everybody's so accepting of you messing up, but I have owned the fact that I'm human. And while I have a large platform to speak on, and while I have large brands associated with me, I am still a human. I'm still an entrepreneur. I'm still going through the same motions that big business owners go through every day. So when people, when you have, complaints and people like give you maybe a bad rating or a bad review, don't fret. Consider that Amazon gets thousands of millions of reviews a day, and they're not all positive, right? And they can bounce back. And I know that sometimes when you're a smaller brand, you think, yeah, but I won't be able to bounce back because people will see that and they won't buy into what I'm doing. People will see that and then they won't call on me. Guess what? There's millions, billions of people on the planet. And with the internet, you have the opportunity to get to anybody that you want to with ads, with like targeting and marketing. You can be selling to anyone, anywhere. And sometimes you're not your own customer. And also that means that your customer may not even be in your city. Your customer may not even be near you, around you, and you may have to go out and seek that customer. And that customer is absolutely looking for you. Don't be afraid to sell, right? Sell yourself, sell your thing. It's all sales. Like, it's interesting. So branding, marketing, sales. Right? When I feel like with the internet coming into play, they started to be a lot more separate. But before now, I believe that it was all just under sales and marketing, because sales is where you're actually solidifying that next step. So in a sales funnel, you have awareness, then you have engagement, and then you have the actual becoming a customer. Awareness, engagement, consuming. You're owning your brand is where you're building so much awareness that you're able to have people own a part of your brand as well. When we are watching things on TV, we get so ingrained in the characters. We get so ingrained in the brand that the writers are building for each character. We start to see ourselves in this. So what awareness creates is I start to be able to become aware of how you're just like me. I start to become aware of how your product is for me. I started to become aware of how the tools that you're using could also be a part of my life. And then when it comes to engagement, now I'm pushed past in awareness to actually interact. Maybe I like your post because it's a beautiful image. Maybe you ask me a question, which increases interaction and engagement. And then I start to actually comment under it. Maybe you evoke emotion in a whole different way that you didn't intend to, and you feel like it's negative. Well, when people comment in any sense, when people react in any sense to what you're doing, that is a sign that you have owned your brand, you have owned the spaces you created, and that they are now being affected by you. So welcome phrases that you feel comfortable with practicing when it comes to selling. Also, just like little hooks at the end of your post that thinking about what do you want people to do? Your sale comes from actually having something that you want people to do. It's not selling for selling's sake. Once again, this is all communication. So you're thinking about what are people hearing, and you're thinking about what do you want them to hear. So it doesn't have to be pushy, doesn't have to be aggressive. It just needs to be there. It just needs to be happening. right? And some of the things that brands are thinking about that we as consumers don't even realize. When you watch a commercial, every single piece of that is very intentional. Every person walking by, every tree planted in a place, every car sliding by, driving by, every word said to lighting, all those things are very intentional. So it's not, think about sales outside of convincing, but actually, how do you just talk to the person that's looking for you? We're all looking to buy new products. We're all looking to consume new things on a regular basis. And you could be one of those things when you step back and own exactly what you have. Very, very, very important branding and marketing tip and owning your visibility. Be very proudly, not for everyone. Like I hear when I ask people like, who's your target audience? And they say, oh, my target audience is everybody because everybody can buy my product. And I always go to the example of the Pantene commercial where like the white woman's hair is flowing. And then she has this, like, there's this animation that where the hair, and I'm looking at it thinking, yep, not going to happen to my hair. That's not my hair. My hair doesn't work like that. Right. But they have determined that in this time slot that I'm watching TV, that somebody that fits their mold, it is for them. And so it's okay for you to not be for everybody. It's okay if your thing is for a particular group of people, because that is where you're going to make your sale. Stop. You don't have to convince anyone. If there's anything you remember that I said on this podcast, I'm on this broadcast, when you walk away from today, don't spend your energy trying to convince a person that does not get it or get you of what your product is and what you're offering. Spend every available waking moment on finding the people who get it, finding the people who care about your product, finding exactly who is looking for you, because they are out there and they may not be near you. They may not be in your inner circle. They may not be your friends, but the person who's looking for your product is absolutely out there. When it comes to going viral or thinking virally, right? Because what we know of things being viral is when things are spreading very quickly throughout the internet. And memes are often things that become viral, and GIFs, the GIFs though, where people have these quick video things of funny things. And you may be sitting and thinking to yourself, it'd be nice if my product went viral because then I would be able to sell more. It'd be nice if my image went viral because then I would have more followers. It'd be nice if things went viral, then I would have more access to things. Well, some of it is you create a viral look for yourself. So when you're owning your brand and owning your marketing, now if I go to your Instagram and then to your Facebook and then to your Twitter and even to maybe your Snapchat, I'm seeing a similar thing. And now I'm getting to know you from a distance. And I'm like, oh, Shelly Bell, yeah, she talks about entrepreneurship. Oh, Cornisha, yeah, she's going to be talking about Black women and how Black women can level up their businesses and their life. Oh, that coach, yeah. Oh, Ariel Lauren, she's going to be telling you how to make money with loans and lines of credit. Oh, Nike, if you look at Nike versus like an Adidas, right? Nike, you think active. They have branded their entire story around doing and just do it, which is more about being active. Adidas has branded themselves around being original creatives. So it's more about fashion. It's more about a clean, fashionable look that includes certain designs. And so while these are two shoe companies that we both put on shoes, we put on both of these brands to walk, they have decided to tell a very different story. No matter where you find them, they will be telling that story. That's one of the pieces to creating a viral looking brand. Now, the other piece of going viral is to just want to go viral. Want it. Like, you don't have to be like, oh, well, no, I just want to be, I don't really want to be too much. And stop stepping yourself back. No, want that and create that for yourself. A perception, you get to create a perception. The momentum, as the momentum builds, fold into it, push harder, go for it. And timing is everything. Watch the news, create Google alerts for the news. You can go to Google Trends and look at trending topics. You can you can go and set up to follow different outlets so that you will be in the know. Things that go viral, how-to content, news, freebies, and memes, things to consider. Last piece that I would share, and we can go into the Q&A, is make a plan to own your content. Make a plan to create more visibility. You can start with knowing what's happening. Through Google Alerts and Google Trends, you can set notifications to be sent to you through Google Alerts or your email about things you care about, so you stay in the know about what content you want to share that's related to you, your brand, or your industry. With Google Trends, you can go and search for how things have been trending over time. That will help you get more keywords and understanding of how people are referring to your industry. Creating ads based off of what you know. With Google Ads, when you create ads on Google, you're landing in a place where people are absolutely going to search for what you have. When you create ads in other places like Facebook and Instagram, you're learning your audience in a place where people are just gravitating to be social. It's not so much an either or, it's a yes and. Tracking. Set goals and be consistent. Use Google Sheets to map out the content you've already shared. And now Google Sheets has artificial intelligence included, where you can search for things after you've gathered so much data. You can go in and search for, well, which content did I get the most traction behind? Because you defined it in your worksheet. Lastly, don't forget the 4 senses. When you're creating content, when you're owning your brand, what we're gravitating to just as humans is, what are we seeing from you? What are we hearing? What do we take? What is the image that you created make us taste and feel, hear, and see? That is what you're looking, and smell. So that is what you're looking for. Like, that is really the underlying basis to how you go from owning your own brand to get other people including owning the brand with you. So I just want to end with my contact information, as I want to give time for questions. This was so great. I'm so glad I had an opportunity to share this expertise with you. It excites me. I love what Quanisha is doing, and I'm so happy to just be a part of it. You can contact me. So you can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and everywhere at I am Shelly Bell. You can also go to my website. I also am opening up for coaching now. I'm doing my coaching a slightly different, where you can book me when you need it. I don't have a consistent program. So for consistent programming, definitely go to Quanisha and get that consistent programming going. If you're interested in pitching your business at Black Girl Ventures, or interested in just learning more about how to come to the pitch competitions, like I said, we'll be in 9 cities this year. The Black Girl Ventures information is there. It's just blackgirlventures.org. We're at Black Girl Ventures on Instagram, and then on Twitter, we're at BGirlVentures.
So I'm going to give you a clap. Everyone put some claps in the images in the chat. So applause. Oh my God. I feel like we just went through a course. I don't think we need to do the rest of the summit, because she just told you how to increase your value and rise. And there's so much there was so much value that just gave. So just thank you, Shelly, so much for once again accepting the invitation and come sharing all your expertise. People saying thank you. They was like, this was the most And so if you have questions, if you're on Zoom, so we're answering questions for people who have registered. So if you're watching this on Facebook, click the link in the description, come register now. You can join right now. And for those of you who are here, write your question in the Q&A. So there's a Q&A section, and it's easiest to do that. Or if you want to come on live and ask your question verbally, go ahead and raise your hand. But I just want to emphasize some of what I pulled away essentially was, you got to own your gifts, right? You got to own who you are, and that will help you to own your space and who you're meant to serve, right? Don't be afraid to stand for something, right? Stand for or against, whatever way. But most importantly, don't be afraid to stand for yourself. That's what I was really hearing you say at the essence of what you were saying, Shelly. Okay,
I'm sorry. I'm all typing.
Oh, no. She's like, I'm reading questions. So,
Okay,
but yeah, it's
I'm
really that ownership.
Yes. Absolutely. I think, you just can't help but to be who you are. And I mean, the fullness of that. I don't, even if that's like fear, even if that is nervousness, even if that is like, I'm not always 100% this, I'm not always 100% that. Like, own that. Own even the places where you are not. Own the places where you are, and just figure out ways to settle into exactly that, because that's the refreshingly real part of you. And that's what people gravitate to. Mm-hmm. Like, we're not looking for perfection. We're not looking for whatever these definitions are of what a thing is supposed to be. You'd be surprised, when you look at content that goes viral, or you look at content that people are gravitating to. We're in a very high consumer space right now. Like, we're consuming constantly. And so it is an opportunity for those of us who can balance consuming and actually distributing content. When we can balance that, then we can get into a space of really, really growing our products in a major way. I think, so there is a question.
Yes, Dawn.
Yeah, I want
to. Well, I'll read it out loud and then Shelly can answer. She says, hi, Shelly. Dawn here from the Most Curls. I'm still prototyping. What are some ways to market effectively before you have a product ready for the market?
Great question. And I think you're thinking in the right way already, because you're saying, how do I market before I go to market? And I think that because people don't have an understanding of like what it means to even go to market, and part of your go to market is that you're already marketing. so I would say you're already thinking in the right direction. Part of that is creating your look online. So a couple tidbits for that. There's so many places now to mock up your product. One that I'll give you is called Envato, Envato. And Envato has multiple different pieces. It has Envato Elements. Envato has a partnership with a company called Placeit. What Placeit does is it allows you to create product mock-ups using graphic images. So if you go to the Black Girl Ventures page and you go to Shop BGV, you will see an amazing picture of a woman at the top with her jacket open and her shirt says Black Girl Ventures like this. I mocked that up on Placeit. So it looks like a full-blown model, like we did a photo shoot. I mocked that up on Placeit. A lot of our like pitch decks that I create, Envato Elements has all types of like infographics and pitch decks and like anything you can think of, from little icons. So I would say the first thing I would say is mock things up really great online and start a pre-sale campaign. And when you have your date that you're going to launch, start doing pre-sales and start putting it out there so that people can start gravitating to your product. And even that's a way to access capital before you actually spend on some of the things you're going to end up spending on. One other tidbit I'll leave you with is keep in mind that we're all looking at their Facebook timeline. So when ads come through your Facebook timeline, it could be viewed as just another post. So create a post that looks like an ad, and then start interacting with people that way. And that's free marketing. So take a look at ads for the type of products you have, and then create a post to mirror that. Put that out. We don't know the difference. We just scroll into the timeline.
Right. Yeah. Yes, great. And what I did for those of you who are in the Zoom webinar, in the chat, I put some of the links, one to blackgirlventures.org, as well as Envato, that was envato.com, if you want to check that out. So Carla has a question. She says, I'm an attorney and do small business consulting, as well as real estate / landlord tenant, which I'm good at. But I am passionate about sensual movement and women's sexual health and wellness. These two topics seem to be so different. If I were to pursue them both, how do I handle branding? These businesses are so different.
Yeah, I love that. So, and I get this question a lot because people are often asking me, do I need 2 websites? Do I need 2 Instagrams? Do I need 2 Facebooks? And the answer is most of the time, yes.
I don't know why I was expecting a no to come. You're like, no, yes.
No, the answer is yes. This is all about target audience. That's really what it's about. It is about creating that customer persona that fits well with each thing. What I don't want it to be about, or what I want people to step away from it being about is insecurities about how they will affect each other. I don't think that's her problem. I'm just saying that what I've noticed is that when people ask me that question, they're really saying, oh my gosh, like how do I on one side of me be this very sensual, open body movement person, and on the other side, I want people to be very legal and, consulting and is very conservative. And I could be nervous about how I will be viewed if they find out about either one. One of the places that I face that is with being a teacher. So with being a teacher, I'm working with students and parents on a regular basis, but I was also bartending at the strip club on the weekends. And I was also like doing poetry, and I was not talking about things that may be kid friendly. And so I worried a lot about how would these things clash. I had a point where I was a arts commissioner for the city of Alexandria. And I remember thinking, I can't post my half naked picture because I feel like being an artist today, because I'm also a representative for the city. And so that's where things become a little bit conflicting in how you want to build out your brands. It was, I was nervous about, and I didn't, and it made me feel very caged. So I think you just need to think through, what do I want from both of these brands? Usually is like one of these bring you really good money, and then the other one you're still trying to figure out because it's the one you want to do. So I would say, yes, there's separate branding required because they have two separate target audiences. I would say you can bring them together on the playground and let them play together sometime if you want. So, you could figure a way to wrap, the legal pieces into the body movement pieces. But for the most part, they sound like two very different companies, which means, yes, you would end up doing two very different types of branding and marketing, which is okay. Just map it out. Again, you can do all you want, maybe just not on the same day. So map it out, strategize. Like, do you do content for the movement business during, the day on Saturdays? Do you do content for the legal business all day on Monday? Do you take clients for the legal business on Thursdays? And then you do the movement business on Saturdays? Map it out, strategize. You can absolutely handle it. Yes, you can handle it.
And many of you have heard of Side Hustle Pro. One of my friends from Penn, actually, Nikayla, that's her company. So we know people have side hustles and they do really well. So it is possible to have your career or just even your person, right, and still build other brands and other businesses on the side. And actually is a segue into SF. She says, do you feel like owning multiple businesses takes away from the success of each of them?
So going back, what I said earlier about like people always telling me, you need to do one thing, you need to do one thing. And I remember 2013, I took a cross country drive with a friend of mine from here to the Bay Area. I'm in DC, so from here to the Bay Area. And she said to me, you know what, I'm interested to see what happens when you focus on one thing. And it was slightly different for me because it wasn't saying you need to do one thing, but it was like, wonder what would happen for you if you actually focused on one thing. So what I'll say is, if you build out teams, no. And if you pace things out, no, I don't feel like it could take away. You have to create your playbook for what success looks like. So that could be, okay, I have 5 ideas. I'm going to take them and I'm going to do them all for 30, 60 days at a time. So it's like, first 30 days is get this idea off the ground, build a team for it, get it running, get it revenue generating. Second idea is get that one off the ground, get it automated, get it a team, build a team around it. Because the idea of one thing having to slow you down from another thing is similar to just looking at it like you have to be the one doing all the things. Mm-hmm. And you don't. Figure out how you build out teams, figure out who you want to be in the world. Because if you're the person that wants to be on the ground with all of them, then you're going to end up spreading yourself thin. But if you're the kind of person that's like, I want to build these things and I want to make revenue off them and I want to see them happen in the world, you can absolutely build teams. There's people who own multiple McDonald's. There's people who own, there's one company that owns the Old Navy and the Gap and you just have to figure out what it looks like. There's models out there of people who are owning multiple things, but they often have to have very strong teams in order to be very successful at it. And if you don't have that, I do think that a concentrated effort on one thing does produce really, really great results. But again, doesn't mean you have to only do that one thing forever. Just figure out the timing for how you do everything.
Yeah. So I want to pull out there's a couple of roles of a CEO, right? One is to drive the vision. The other one's to drive revenue, because if you're not bringing in the lifeblood of the business, you have an expensive hobby. And then the other part is to duplicate yourself, right? And develop other leadership. So when Shelly says build a team, the statistics are showing right now that 97% of Black women-owned businesses are sole proprietorships. And that doesn't mean that people aren't contracting, but most of us don't have employees. So that could be another place where if you're not growing or like you said, you have multiple businesses and they're not really developing, you haven't really built out that team, right? Mm-hmm. So take yourself out of the business. And like Shelly said, have that concentrated focus. But I just wanted to emphasize that she was saying team, systems, automation, right? So this is not about you doing everything when you want to start to expand, whether your business into multiple locations or take on some of your other passion products that you want to monetize.
Yeah.
She's like what she said. Yeah. All right. We have another question here. So she says, so SF, so the follow-up is strategies for developing teams, especially with no support.
Okay. Know what you want. So I've gone through several personal development things because I was running a team. I'm thinking I'm saying what I need. Like I think that I'm communicating what needs to be done. And I realized, oh, wow, they don't know what to do because I don't know what I'm doing. Right. And or some people are very task oriented and they are not people that are going to think of things outside of what you told them to do. So first step is, what do you really, really need someone to do? Like, are you at capacity with what you can do? And then what is left over? And some of those things are not thinking like, what is it that I don't want to do? But thinking what is the best use of your time as a CEO? And that's the way you want to work through the type of team members you want to get. Now, building a team is challenging. Hiring is challenging because you're actually looking for a relationship. And so, but it takes you some time to figure out that you're not looking for expertise. You're looking for a relationship. You're looking for a really good fit. You're looking for a mix of both. So not to say that you're not looking for expertise at all, but you're looking for a mix of both. You're looking for the person that can have the skill, but also has the integrity that they want to do a good job. Mm-hmm. So it takes time. I will say that. So one strategy could be networking specifically for that. So sometimes we network for business opportunities. We network for ourselves because we want more people to know us. We network because we just want to know more people. Well, I would consider asking yourself what it would look like if I'm networking just for talent. Mm-hmm. What does it look like if I'm networking, if I'm going to events where I know talent will be? Mm-hmm. Am I having a conversation with people that I know could be potential talent? Am I trying to push people who are great talent but don't want to work for me into working for me? Am I pushing people who are great talent but they just can't give me the time that I need? Interns. So that's one thing. Strategize around getting into places or into relationships with people who can do what it is you need done. Second thing, before I jump into interns, second thing is a team doesn't have to know their team. So when I started, the first time I went in as a full-time business owner, I had it where I had a team, but it wasn't like we met as a whole team. But get out of the corporate mindset of what team means. When I meet women, I say, why is it so hard for you to raise investment dollars right now? And they're like, oh, because I don't have a team. Who are you telling that you don't have a team? You got people to help you? Is your mama in the kitchen with you, cooking up, mixing up product? Is your kid, delivering product?
Right.
Is your uncle, driving his truck to take you wherever you those are team members. Okay. You got people advocating for you, spreading the word. Those are team members. They don't need to know. You don't have to refer to them as team where you got to have a team meeting and everybody got to come to an office. That's a very corporate way to think about it. So get creative about addressing what you need. You can have a whole team of freelancers. You can be on Upwork.com finding several different people to engage in a thing. But team is about relationship. The next thing I say is like a lot of people will say, oh, get interns. Just get interns. Okay. You can get interns. Just know that interns are going to create more work for you. Mm-hmm. Because most of the time, they are underdeveloped in following directions. They may have skill. They may be great at doing something. But a lot of times, unless you've had experience already in an area, you're underdeveloped with what it means to just follow directions. You're putting a lot of what you're thinking in, and then not getting as much out from the person that you employed. So, or for them as being an employee. So I would say, just think through what team looks like. What does that actually mean for you? How are you being creative about creating a team? And knowing that like you want to make your interns more of like ambassadors than you may want them working on an intimate part of your business.
Well, I'm pretty sure let us know in the chat. I know some of the questions that you answered, people are saying awesome feedback. Thanks, Shelly. That helped me reconsider some things about team building. So that's been really great. So 3 more minutes, y'all. So if you have any pressing questions, either raise your hand or drop them into the chat. But this was a very robust presentation. Like you touched on so many aspects of ourselves and even thinking about our businesses coming from different angles. One of the, I call it profit blockers that sometimes we face as Black women is trust, right? Sometimes it's trusting ourselves and also trusting others. That can also be preventing you from building a team. And like Shelly said, it's all relationship, right? So how do you normally build relationships in your life? Showing up, being consistent, right? Getting to meet people. And so you can mirror those same things in your hiring process, or as you said, as Shelly said, as you're pursuing talent, and even as you're cultivating relationships with your customers, right? So really start to own who you are, own your space, and feel that confidence that you need to actually just go out and have relationship building, right? As that primary focus. Because even at the end of the day, the clients or customers that you want to help, you know that you're there to transform their lives. You're not there, hopefully you're not there to just take advantage of people. But I know if you're here watching us in this community, you're very heart-centered, right? You're mission-driven, and you want to transform lives and ultimately the world. So the way you're going to do that is through people, right? So either through people that's on your team or ultimately through the people you're going to serve. And in return, right, you get value in the form of money, right? So your business can generate revenue.
100%.
Okay. Oh, one more question came in as I was wrapping up. So Carla again says, in offering a service rather than a product, do you recommend building a brand around 1 or 2 services that can be offered?
Well, okay, so services can be slightly different because services have an overarching theme. So like one time I heard someone say, a consultant, he said, I've worked for various different companies, but at all of these companies, I worked in accounting. So he's like, I built out a career versus building a job track record, which I thought was a very interesting perception and way to think about how you build out your branding. So from a service perspective, if you are, it's kind of a menu selection. So if you're coaching, inside of coaching, you can offer multiple offerings. If you are doing, if you're hair and nails, you can offer multiple kinds of hairstyles and multiple kinds of nails. So I don't think that you have to, from a services perspective, narrow down to one service, as long as you're clear on the overarching branding that those services are set into. So that would be my answer for that.
All right, great. So we have 2 more questions. So one person wants to come on live, and I see a question in the chat, which we'll put into the Q&A. And that's the end of the line, everybody. So we'll answer these 2 questions. So Dawn actually wants to come on. So Dawn, you can now talk. Hello?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we sure can. Hi, Dawn.
Shelly, I'm officially your like live video stalker. This is like the third time in the past couple of weeks, but you guys, this has been really amazing. I'm interested. You guys just talked about like fundraising, and I'd like to talk about marketing to angels, to potential investors specifically. What say you?
Yeah, so I was on a panel yesterday, a webinar panel actually with the UN and EU and the EU, UN women and the EU and the ILO talking about basically guide to access and capital. The thing about, so when it comes to investors, strategy, research, relationship, those are your three key things. Strategy, research, relationship. So when you think about what kind of strategies, really it's built, how are you going to build relationships with them? I think that you could possibly use marketing, but it's like, it's so hard to drill down to a investor persona because we're not labeling ourselves on platforms where you would traditionally just market. So like, I don't think we've gotten to the point where we're measuring those kind of habits or titles in that way, where you can be on Facebook creating a Facebook ad and then be like, oh, the target is investors. Like, it's not there yet.
Right.
So you have to create your own versions of targeting. And that is a couple things. A lot of investors are way behind the scenes. So do your research. Find out what matches up to your industry. Who is interested in what you are doing? And where will you be best served as a part of their portfolio? Know your numbers and be able to tell your story as to why. Yes, there's a million products. You are also unique in whatever it is that you're doing, or at least you should be able to tell me why. Going back to the chair model, the chair modeling that I talked about, right? Like when it's useful and it's valuable, it's a clear sell to an investor. If it makes money, clear sell to an investor on how it makes money. So research. And then figure out your kind of your pipelining, like your sales pipeline for it. So things that I do to build relationships. When I go to events, if it's people that I want to build a relationship with, I get their card. I don't give them mine and wait for them to contact me. I take their card. I don't usually carry cards, but sorry, I don't usually carry cards. But so I take their card. I have a template response kind of email set. I use HubSpot. HubSpot is a sales pipeline tool that you can easily integrate with your Gmail platform. And you can monitor when people open your emails. You can also set email templates. So I would set I have a template that says, it was nice to meet you at blah conference. Let's set up a virtual coffee. Here's how you book it. And I have a short link to my Calendly, which will allow them to book time. Then sometimes I don't use a link because I want them to respond to me. I want them to have to say, oh, great, Shelly, it was nice meeting you too. Yes, how do we do that? And getting that first yes, which is yes, let's talk more, leads to more yeses. Okay? So figure out, when you're building relationships with investors, figure out your how you build a relationship through your questions, how you show up, and be on time. So, in spaces where they are, people respect when people like keep showing up. So like, if I notice that you kept showing up and then now you're asking me a question, I feel familiar with you, even though you don't know that. So like, if you were interacting under my post, then you don't feel like a stranger to me because I'm looking at my post and I'm looking at the interactions under my videos and I'm saying, oh, here's Dawn. Like, I don't even see your face right now. but I would get to know, like, oh, Dawn from the Most Curls. Like, I will remember you now. So now it's no longer a cold interaction. So in marketing, there's terms like cold, warm, and hot. Cold is, and think of asking someone to marry you, right? Are you just going to walk up and be like, and get down on one knee to an investor you have no clue who they are, what they do, any of that? No. Do your research, get to know who they are, have a couple touches, not literally, don't literally touch them, but, a couple times where you're like,
Kelly told me to put my hands on you.
Yeah, you're not literally touching them, but you're having multiple interactions. And then again, honing in on who is for you. Like who is investing in what it is that you have. And that can mean multiple things. That can mean impact. That can mean who's looking for underrepresented founders, looking for women of color, looking for hair products, looking for your industry, and also just like, even if it's not investment, who's a really great partner to help you scale quickly? So like who could buy put in a purchase order for 1 million bottles of whatever you have right now? So like think on that note as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure, totally.
That's great. Thank you, Dawn, for coming on. Appreciate it.
And I actually do have to get ready to hop off in a second. Okay. I'm sorry. I hate to
Yeah. And just quickly, that website was HubSpot, right?
HubSpot, yeah.
Okay, I wrote that in the chat. This is the very last question because we don't want to hold Shelly. Thank you once again for spending your time with us. And so Denisha says, how do we use LinkedIn as a way to build teams, clients, etc.?
Really great. So if you're a nonprofit, if you didn't know this, there is a way on LinkedIn to see people who have elected to volunteer for nonprofits. And I believe if you go to your top right, click on the profile area or settings or search or something, you can find it. I would have to look it up and try to find it for you. But ultimately, if you're a nonprofit, you can see right on LinkedIn people who have elected to actually volunteer for nonprofits. As a for-profit, and even with the strategy, Don, for building relationships with investors, who knows who? 6 degrees of separation. Who do you know? What do they know? And who do they know? So I would look and say, okay, I see that Don worked with or is connected to Quanisha. And I actually want to talk to Quanisha's assistant or friend or investor. I'm going to reach out to Don. Hey, Don, we're connected. How are you? I realize that you're connected to Quanisha, and I'm actually trying to get to find out how she's getting her investors. And I'm, just want to get some advice from her on where I could go in my business. Could you connect me? When people introduce you, it is a easier sale, is a closer connection. It is an immediate trust built for you than when you are reaching out cold. I can't tell you how many times somebody will say to me, oh my God, like X, Y, and Z told me to contact you. A week later, X person told me to contact you. Another week later, another piece. And now here I am, and I needed to contact you. And it's because when you are consistent and owning your brand very clear, then people can start to be ambassadors for you when you don't even know it. So on LinkedIn, you can work through those connections to figure out who knows who that can get you closer to the resources and the connections that you need to build revenue and push your business forward.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Shelly. So everyone, please, if you're on Facebook, tag her, say, thanks, Shelly. Let us know your takeaways because we want to know that we're feeding you, right? That things are resonating with you. So please share your takeaways. So why do I keep calling you? The person who helps me with my house manager is Kelly. So I think with my code, all the words and syllables are coming together. So thank you, Shelly, for donating and investing your time here to sow into more Black women entrepreneurs who are on the rise and those who are ready to get to their next level. So we thank you so much for your time. And if you have to jump off, I totally understand. I just wanted to do some last minute announcements, like we're at church for the ladies who are here. So I'll touch base with you later. But if you have to, we definitely understand. So thank you again.
Thank you. And thank you for the questions. Definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. I speak in a lot of spaces, and sometimes I've seen people say from the stage, if you want to get in contact with me, just contact me. And then nobody contact the person. So yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. I do have to hop off. I'm so sorry. But I really enjoyed it, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, great. Thank you, Shelly.
Right. Have a great day.
Bye. And so everyone, don't jump off yet. So once again, I'm Quanisha Green, the founder and CEO here at Black Women CEO. And I hope you enjoyed our keynote, our kickoff session for the Rise Virtual Summit, which all throughout February, we're going to have sessions just like this. Black women CEO experts coming to you to share their success strategies, do some training and wisdom. Attorney Ashley Kirkwood would be here next week with Get the Tea on trademarks. So if you've been wondering, like, how do you protect your brand, she's going to come share. I just got the message from Kim Coles yesterday that she's going to come talk to you all about really how to share your story, right, as a way to build your brand. Monique Eversley Buchanan, who has an MBA and is the co-founder of the Philadelphia Natural Hair Show, which has served thousands of women or had thousands of participants and like over hundreds of vendors as a major event that's been happening here in the Mid-Atlantic. She's going to come and talk to you about events for business. You're going to hear from women who are actually in the Black women CEO community who have made the transition from sometimes being the secret entrepreneur or who just knew they had this gift and expertise, many of it outside the field that they've been trained in. So I'm glad that that topic came up. And they made that transition to actually coming out of hiding and starting to play in the arena, right? The public domain, and starting to monetize their expertise through programs and services and products. And I'm also going to do some trainings for you too, right? So if you enjoyed this video, if you are already registered, I'm going to put the link here again. Please share that short link, the bit.ly/Rise Summit 2019. Help another sister rise. This is how we change this issue, right, that we're having where Black women are underserved, right? We're not being sought for funding and all these other things. Yes, we got to go out, hit the pavement, vote, right, hit the macro issues. But as you can see, there are things that are so personal to us, right? That even if all those things were gone, we'll be like, yeah, I'm still kind of scared. I have doubt. I have some insecurity, right? And through community, and this is what the research shows. So for those of you who don't know, I have a master's in social work. I have certifications in organizational behavior, master in corporate life coaching. So I look at research a lot. So I know Black women, we're not a monolith, but when I'm talking about us as a group, I think the research really paints a picture of that. And so there's actually peer-reviewed research that shows that community is a protective factor for Black women, right? In those spaces, we affirm one another. And so that's why we're creating this virtual community over February. And we're actually going to have, I think, a Slack or Mighty Networks group so that you can continue to have discussions as we go along. So stay tuned for emails. We're going to have a number of links and things coming to you as well as for future announcements. But once again, it's about community, right? So just how if you had a great soft drink and you loved it, you would tell all your friends. If you enjoyed your time here, like Dawn is saying, this is exciting, love this platform, take that link, post it on your social media, right? Even on the registration page, it says share out, right? Share the messages. I put the links at the bottom. Let's really create a movement, right? Let's have this go viral, that we are having this summit with Black women experts coming to share their information that is hard earned, right? That they learned the hard way. And now they're synthesizing it so that you don't have to have that challenge, right? I'm going to be totally transparent here. And some of you have been in our community for a while. I have invested over $40K, right, in business education. That's outside of my formal education, just to learn how to market, how to sell effectively, how to create high-level programs and premium products. And this is my charge. I don't want another Black woman to pay that at all. Right. So that's why we do events like this. That's why we have programs that are accessible. And right now, I'm not going to tell you about any of our programs of Black Women CEO, because that's not what I'm here to do. You'll hear about that later. This is about giving you this value, giving you this access and being served. So if you're watching this and you haven't registered, in the description somewhere, where I'm pointing, there is a link. It says Rise Summit 2019. It's a short link. Go ahead and register so that you get these updates. Because as you can see, we're doing the Q&A with women who have registered, who are here live. And so we want to make sure that you are served and get those announcements and stay tuned. So on the live streams, we will have these videos up only for a limited time. They're going to come down and they're going to go into the vault, right? We're going to do like Disney, going away in the vault. You may be too young to remember that, but those of you who are in my cohort, you probably remember when Disney did that. So once again, below and even on your social media, share the link. Please tell us your takeaways. Tell us your takeaways, right? Even share these recordings and videos and show up. You're going to get the most value when you show up live. So once again, our theme with this virtual conference and summit is Rise, right? It's time to elevate, right? To help you increase your value and visibility so that the world knows your name. It is your time, sister. right? So let's stop shrinking, no longer being hidden figures. Let's actually get into that spotlight and be at the forefront of change. And we've always been at the forefront now, but let's make sure the world knows it. So this is Quanisha Green, the founder and CEO of Black Women CEO, coming to you. And here's our motto. We believe that power is the ability to create your reality. So go forth and be powerful and encourage other women to be powerful by encouraging them to come and register for Rise, the virtual summit hosted by Black Women CEO. So until next time, I'll check you later.